Welcome back to Beagle Eye Vision. Squirt Dog woke me up this morning by stepping on the controller and turning on the PlayStation. So I figured I might as well get up and record an episode today. So we're gonna finish off episode 37 of Astro Theology on the CubbyWhole podcast. This last half of this episode is so awesome. We're gonna learn so much Emerald language. There's a lot of powerful stuff in this episode. I got some power armor. I'm gonna take it back to the gas station. It needs repaired. I'm gonna take it back to the Red Rocket gas station. Put it there. Go find some more loot. Find some more materials. And then I have to go and start getting ready for work. Get some food. And then it's a really nice day out, so I'm gonna ride my bike. I'm going to be thinking of Matt Bennett of Crazy Life Stories podcast. Shout out to Matt Bennett. Love you, Matt. Love you, Brandon. Thank you for doing this episode. I love this podcast. There's so much awesome information. You can follow along at the website, follow along with the slides, and don't forget to put some W in your cup while you roam the wasteland. We're going to get some more knowledge. Let's go! Thank you for choosing Beagle Eye Visions for your entertainment.
Of certain attributes. So Thor is the easiest one to associate because Jupiter is considered the god of lightning because of its great storm, and Thor is considered the god of lightning. So we could relate this back to Zeus in a certain way as well in those attributes. So one thing I would like to point out as well before I continue on is that we are looking at elemental powers here. And these elemental powers are of crucial importance to distinguish and not to be taken as physical or literal bloodlines. And a lot of people might have issues with that, but I am stating that here. These are allegorical. We should not confuse elemental powers with the perpetuation of ancestry. Friday is Freya's day, and Freya is the name for the Old Norse god Frigg or Frigg, and I might be pronouncing that incorrectly as well. So just work with me with these. You are welcome to translate them yourself as well. And this is associated with the love god Frey, and this is the planet Venus. So in French, this is Vendredi, which means Venus. Now, obviously, Saturday is Saturn's day. Saturn's day could be looked at as Kronos. One more thing I'd like to point out is there are many other deities that you can correlate to these planets. These are the ones that I am picking out. But obviously you can see like Thor's day is directly relevant to Thursday. Friday is directly relevant to Frey's day, etc. Tuesday is directly relevant to Tuesday. Saturday, or Saturn's day, is the god of time, and that was because it was the last planet that encompassed everything else. But we also have, in the Roman religion, Saturnus, which was another deity associated with Saturn, and has very similar attributes as Cronus. In French, this is Samedi, or Samedi, which means Saturn. Sunday is Sun's day, obviously. It's the day of rest for all modern people because we have solar cult doctrine running amok in this world. So you go out on Friday night, party Friday night, or go hang out with your friends, whatever. You go out Saturday night. On Sunday, that's rest. That's the day of rest. And then you go back to your 9-to-5 job on Monday, Moon's Day, to make your your money, right? So there's some correlation there to all of that. And in the Greek tradition, this is related to Helios. And in French, this translates to Dimachi. So if I brutalize those translations, I apologize. I've never been very good at pronunciation, still working on that. But I feel that that's relevant. And this 7 happens to be very important when it comes to the stellar mythos as well, because this is a solar cult overlap when we are putting a finer point on time and we are putting a finer point on the movements of the celestial bodies and the seasons and things like the vernal and autumn equinox and the summer and winter solstice. So There's a lot of things to this when it comes to understanding astrotheology. Going back to Elohim, that means gods. It's not one god. Elohim is plural for gods. I wanted to mention that earlier, and I don't think I did. El is God, and this relates back to electricity. Mag is magnetism, so we have the El and the Mag, the masculine and the feminine. And that is very important to understand. We will explain that further in future episodes. If you're following along with the slides, the next slide is called the Age of Aquarius. Now, I have mentioned earlier that we have moved into the Age of Aquarius. Some say the Age of Aquarius is the age of knowledge, the age of washing away all of our materialistic, ego-identified illnesses. I say it's the age where humanity's ultimate goal is for freedom. So on that slide, it gives you a little bit more of an example and some numbers to work with when it comes to the great year or the Platonic year. I just wanted to mention that. The reason why I brought this up is because we are now going to focus on the age of Taurus, because I'm going to talk about something called the cult of Bill and Bill worship. So I'm going to end this episode with going through the next few slides, and you should follow along with them like this is a presentation if possible. Make sure to look at the visual representations that I'm giving. And I'm going to go into a little bit of green language and also a little bit of mythology to explain a few things here. And then we are going to call that the end of the method of manipulation for religion. And on the next solo show, I'll be going into subversive symbolism. So the age of Taurus is said to be around 4000 BC to 1800 BC. Taurus is a fixed earth sign. So this is in relation to the attributes that we are assigning to these zoo types because of their time period in the seasons and how they correlate to our sacred sciences such as agriculture. And I believe I explained this before, but I will say it again. When you see the bull, you get your plows out and you start to get your gardens ready. This is what this is about. Preserving the ancient knowledge of not only the sabbatical year, which relates back to those 7 days of the week, because the sabbatical year is about the 7 years. The sabbatical year was about knowing when to not plant. So every 7 years, you have to rotate your crops because the soil becomes depleted. Thus, there is no more nutrition in the soil or nutrients in the soil. And the way that we preserved that was also in the 7-day week and in many other symbolic associations with the 7, so that we would not forget that important part of the science of agriculture. So this is about the sacred science of agriculture, because agriculture was one of the fundamental sciences that promoted healthy, civilized development. It helped to evolve our species, making us less animal-like and making us be able to create less harm onto the sentient beings. And we were thriving we were striving to do that. We were striving to live more in harmony with natural law because of the sacred sciences that we were developing. So it was an earth sign. Obviously springtime, obviously springtime correlates to the earth. And then when you see the bull, you would get your plows out and start to get your gardens ready and planting your seeds. So this also has a lot to do with fertility, and this correlates to the nature cults and their fertility rituals. At this time period, we have a big fertility ritual, which I'm going to talk about in just a little bit. And if you're looking at the slide, you can see that this astrological sign is associated with agriculture, money, banking, real estate, property, all matters dealing with physical ownership and permanence and security. But it goes beyond just that, because that only takes you into a materialistic view. It has a lot to do with our spiritual side. But what I mean by this is spirit in the flesh. It has a lot to do with our work being done here on the ground. So do not take this just solely as a left brain thing, because even though it is an earth sign about being fixed, it is about you bringing your spirit to the working area so that you can get the work done. So in many ancient cultures, we have the bull being symbolized by many different deities, depending on the evolution of their mythos. You must understand as well that depending on the evolutionary period of the myth, or he may be symbolized as a different zoo type. We find this very often. And this is because not only is the mythos evolving, but our sciences of species is starting to evolve. The characteristics of species are starting to evolve, and we're starting to put a finer point on different animal attributes and also different animals, and we're starting to distinguish one from the other. So Ra was the bull of the heavens. We have Osiris, the bull of the earth. We have Nut, the sky goddess with the cow's ears. We have Hathor, the cow goddess in the Egyptian tradition, who is also crowned with horns. We have Bolchius, I believe that's how you pronounce that, Bolchius, which is the bull of Thebes. In addition to pharaohs carried the Ankh, which is associated to the symbol of Venus, the planetary ruler of Taurus. Now, I want to point out here that this is later on. The Ankh is very important to understand because it's one of the first totems ever used to help the spirits go through the Duat, or the underworld. So this is one of the first types of magical tokens that the ancients would give to honor the dead and bury with their dead to help them work through the spirit realm into reincarnation. So the Ankh earlier on is, symbolized by many, many different things. It's a masculine and feminine symbol being brought together. There's a lot to the Ankh. But for context of this, we do find in the later mythology and the later use of this Ankh symbol, it is associated with Venus. And since Venus is the ruler of Taurus, we have a correlation there to the bull. We have the Greeks' mythology with Poseidon, who is considered the bull of the sea, the bull ravisher of Europa, who fled over the Taurus mountains, and most notably the Minotaur, which was the offspring of Poseidon's white bull and Pasiphae. I believe that's how you pronounce that. Wife of King Minos on Crete. So we're going to talk a lot about the Minotaur here in just a moment, because it correlates to the cult of Bill. Biblical scholars also generally agree that the earliest god of the Hebrews was also a bull god. Bull shrines existed at Bethel and many other sacred locations. As I said before, the age of Taurus replaced the age of Aries. And Aries was, in the astro-theological sense, relating to the story of Moses, the ram god. And if anybody knows some of their biblical texts, they could readily see the connections with Moses and the ram rituals. There's a lot to the ram, and I hope to open that up in the future. Now, the next slide is called the Cult of Minerva. And the reason why I'm bringing some of this historical knowledge to the people, we need it on the table because we need to understand the ubiquitous nature between all these cults, and we need to understand how the mythos is evolving, and we need to understand how this pertains to the world that we're living in today. So Minerva is the goddess of wisdom, strategy, warfare, justice, law, victory, and a sponsor of arts, trade, and many different strategic things for the development of society. We see a lot of ubiquity here between and Minerva. Men also relates back to the moon. We get this as a feminine
There we go.
pronunciation. Min has to
I
do
like the
with
colors on this
the
comic
sacred
book.
feminine
They're
principle.
very bright.
So, like we have the word minstrel, which correlates to the menstrual cycle of the female. But Minerva, in the mythology, is not a patron of violence such as Mars is, but about defensive war only. So we can find this in many different symbolic associations. The tarot is one that I think of with the Lady Justice. Now, that's not in every book. Sometimes justice is represented by a male, but some of my favorites is when Lady Justice is represented by a female. I feel that's more pure, more in tune with the ancient Egyptian mythology, specifically going back to the goddess of justice, Ma'at. And really, we can just say that she's the goddess of natural law, the great judge of natural law. So the Romans equated her with the Greek goddess Athena. Minerva is one of the 3 Roman deities in the Capitholine triad, along with Jupiter and Juno. She was the virgin goddess of music, poetry, medicine, wisdom, commerce, weaving, and the crafts. And the craft is very important to understand because this is going to play along with ancient Freemasonry in the future. But obviously, you know, they're specifically talking about crafts such as music or any type of craft that you have going on at this time, which is Freemasonry. And the sacred knowledge is preserved in these crafts along with their implementations, which I will further explain in the future. And Doug may be able to really elaborate on that. This is what is very important when it comes to Minerva. She is often depicted with the sacred creature, which is an owl, which is usually called the Owl of Minerva. And this associates with her specifically to her attribute of wisdom and knowledge. But less frequently, we do see her with the snake and the olive tree. There's a lot of symbolism behind the snake and olive tree, but I'm not going to bring that up here because we're specifically going to focus on the owl. Minerva is commonly depicted as a tall woman with an athletic and muscular build, as well as wearing armor and carrying a spear. So the reason why I'm bringing up Minerva is because we're going to talk about the Minotaur and we're going to talk about the owl. So we're going to talk about the bull and the owl. The next slide is the cult of Moloch. Moloch comes from Molech in Hebrew, which means king or ruler. The cult of Moloch directly correlates to a lot of the sacrifice rituals that are going on. This is all giving us a little bit of knowledge, the prerequisites to getting into the cult build. So I'm not going to completely read all of these slides because I just don't have time to do that for the show. But you're welcome to read through them because there's a lot of extra information in there that I might skip over. So we have Moloch, which is the deity, and Molech, which is actually the ritual. So it's important to understand the difference between those two things. Some Greeks and Roman records claim that the Phoenicians of Carthage also had children that were sacrificed by fire to the deity of Saturn, Greek, which was Saturnus, or Kronos, which is the Roman god of Saturn. And this has to do with the cult of the Black Sun, and we're going to correlate all this together here, which was also known as Baal or Baal, Hammon, by the Carthaginians. This is an important connection between Moloch and Baal. So we often see this, people who have studied the Illuminati and the ritual at Bohemian Grove, to see that they have a giant owl statue where they go and they sacrifice their care, and possibly even in beyond that ritual that they put on for, you know, their supporters and other people. Beyond that, I do believe they're actually symbolically and literally sacrificing real children as well. So I want to point that out, that most likely, yes, they are doing that. But as a theatrical ritual, they do what is known as the cremation of care, and they do this in front of the owl statue. We also know that they use the owl to symbolize their wisdom, right? Which they're not truly wise like we would consider them to be. But I want to connect that owl with Minerva, but also connect that with Moloch and Baal. So they're using this in a dark, perverted way because the owl is a predatory bird that preys on the innocents at night that can see 360 degrees, so it can see in the dark. So it has the knowledge within the darkness. It's something that sees in the dark, and that's how they see themselves.
Hit that switch
So
on the end
the
of the
owl
pump.
is a dualistic symbol. It's not just one thing. We can symbolize ourselves as the owl as well, or attributes of ourselves. Moloch appears to have a symbolic relationship with the owl of Minerva, as they were frequently portrayed together and share the dominion of war. This is because of the ritual called the cremation of care, like I just mentioned, under the name of Molech, which was about the sacrifice of innocence. So this is what the Illuminati would do. They would go out, or any of these cults, when they do the cremation of care, they go out and they ask for forgiveness for the harm that they are about to do onto the people. So they are sacrificing their care so they don't have to feel bad and feel the karmic emotional consequences of the harm that they knowingly are about to do onto the public and onto the innocents. But it's also about them sacrificing their sacred feminine principle. We obviously see that this correlates to the sacrifice of children symbolically and the sacrifice of females or virgins symbolically. Now, like I stated before, Minerva wasn't the violent god, but she got associated through the dark occult with the idea of war through this symbolism. The owl is actually symbolism for the lunar goddess. The owl was depicted as a symbol for wisdom because it had the ability to see in the dark, full 360. This also correlates to the idea of the halo, the Christian halo, light in a 360 degree spectrum. It is a metaphor because it illuminates the darkness of the masses and educates the ignorant. This is about transcending illusion and deception and seeing the ultimate truth of the world. So you may ask, who is Bill? I keep mentioning the cult of Bill. Well, who is Bill? Bill is ultimately the one God that's ruling over this world right now. It is one of the highest religions of this world, and the majority of humankind kneels before this God. This does not particularly only associate to the House of Taurus. We need to make this very clear. But more so, this is associated to the primacy in day sky, the primacy on materialism, Darwinism, domination, slavery, things like this. This is the primacy of control and slavery, which is associated to the day sky. And this is associated with monarchy, the one ruler, because there's only one bright light in the sky for the most part. Every once in a while you get the moon in the sky, and I will talk about that later in the subversive symbolism section. But the light, the sun, is what gives us life, and they are claiming to be that. While most people are nitpicking over divisions of religion, they are missing the holistic picture of who rules all of the religions, which is the dark occultist, or the cult of the black sun. And I would call this the solar cult that is ruling over all religions at this point. So Baal, or Baal, was ranked as the first king in hell, ruling over the east, as we can associate that to the vernal equinox. The sun rising in the eastern horizon, Horus's zone, giving birth to a new day or new year, and fertile crops for the land. And all of this has been based on that sacred science of agriculture and has been perverted down the ages. So through green language, we're going to understand a little bit more about the cult of Bill, or Baal. And
word of advice, never call your
the
mother a
dark
simple
occultists love to use cryptic language and put it right out in front of us and mock us every day with it. So wherever you find synchronicity, make sure to pay attention to that. So Baal was one of the 7 princes of hell, mainly the king of all the princes. This is drawn from the Canaanite tradition. The Hebrew Bible as the primary god of the Phoenicians, like I said before, which they got from the ancient mythos of the solar cult of the Egyptian culture. Baal or Baal was particularly associated with storm and fertility. And as we see on this slide, you have Baal or Baal with a single-headed axe. This is so important to understand because this represents primacy in the north. I cannot put more emphasis on this. This is so important to understand when it comes to this. This represents world domination by a male, left-brain, patriarchal ideology. This is the gavel, and we will be speaking very deeply about the gavel. I want to briefly mention here that the Minotaur is very important to study as well, because it does have to do with what we're talking about, that we are living in a maze world, and we have to fight this Minotaur to get out of this maze, this trap that was designed to make sure to kill us, just like in the legend of the Minotaur. The legend of the Minotaur, we have the hero Theseus who has to come in contact with this. This is a Minoan mythology. We can take all this symbolism and correlate it on a multi-level fashion. This can also relate back to the inner parts of our body. So don't just think that this can also relate back to the inner parts of our psyche and our mind. So don't just relate this into the physical world, which we can do, but these are all archetypes of our psyche, and we need to understand them. I also want to point out here that the Minotaur wields the gavel as well, which is very important, but he has normally a double-headed axe or a double-headed hammer, and it is very symbolic, and this has to do with the ancient stellar mythos. The gavel is originally the symbol, the ancient Egyptian symbol for nature or God. And I'm not going to explain all this in this episode, but I do feel that context on that is very important because that's a big topic to open up. But it has to do with the seven, it has to do with northern polar constellations, it has to do with the pyramid, and it has to do with the Neter, or the NTR, which is where we get our word nature from. And Doug and myself, hopefully, we will be able to open this up in the future very well. I'm sure Nate will also bring this up quite a bit. So I'm just putting it on the table because we do need it on the table at some point. And since the symbolism is here, I am not going to ignore that symbolism. In the zodiac, or the zodiac, which means animal types, the animal circle, the circle of life, the Taurus is the bull, right? And we have the great ritual of the Illuminati that takes place at Bohemian Grove on what is known as the Gaelic holiday of Beltane. This is also known as May Day or Walpurgisnacht. There are many different names for this mid-Sabbath point, and there are 4 of them. But this correlates to this ritual that they do in the springtime. This is all about fertility, planting of new crops, the coming of the new harvest, which will be at the end of the year, making sure that your plants are fertile and good. When you see the Taurus, you get your ox out or your bull out, and you start to plow the garden beds, like I said before. In the markets, we have the bull market versus the bear market. And it's very important here to understand that the bull market relates to materialism and the solar cult, and the bear market relates to the stellar cult and spiritualism. The bear has a lot to do with Ursa Minor and Ursa Major, specifically Ursa Minor in the stellar cult, because it has to do with the 7 pole stars, or Horus and the 6 glorious ones, which has to do with the gavel, nature, pantheism. And anytime we see a bull market, it's everybody going nuts over materialism. Everybody is like, yes, we're making a lot of money. And there's a decline in spiritualism because we're putting primacy on materialism. So it's not a coincidence that you have the bull versus the bear in this. It's so important to understand how they're using these symbols to mock us, because this is a mockery of our spiritualism. Because everybody goes into depression when the bear market comes up, right? But that's because they're finally coming into contact with their true selves, and they really haven't dealt with the darkness of their own self, and they don't know how to handle that the spiritual energy that's being distracted by materialism. Now, obviously, we need a balance between both materialism, or the material, and spiritual, but in correlation here to the markets, we have the bull market. We have the buy bull, which is the two bulls. So if you read that Zodiac slide about the ritual taking place during Beltane, I also gave some information about the two suns in the Hebrew tradition. But bi means two, like binary. We have two digits, 0 and 1. And we have two bulls. And this is about the aspects of the two suns, being the sun in the east and the sun in the west. And this correlates to the science of putting a finer point on time and the attributes that come from that finer point on time, the effects that happen during these time periods of the day. We often see this. We have Babylon. So there's another bull in there. We have ball games, right? Everybody is out playing the ball games to Baal. We have ballers, which has to do with materialism. We have Bel, the lady that marries the beast. We have billionaires, bullionaires. We have gold bullions, and the gold represents the sun as the bull. Balkanization, Baal is in that. Baal is in that. Balkanize. And if you don't know what balkanization means, it means to take a geographical location, split it up into different regions so they all battle with each other based upon their arbitrary laws, because now you have a way of dividing and conquering that land and keeping everybody fighting with each other. We have Bolshevik. We have rebellion. And in this context, I'm saying that rebellion being used as a means of dark occult sorcery rather than the true rebellion, which you can go to my Fake Ass Punks presentation to get what I feel is true rebellion. We have the Bilderbergs, right? Bill, we have that word Bill in there. We also have builder in there, which has to do with masonry, the dark form of masonry. We have blockhead, block, the bullhead, right? We have bullheaded. We have bullheaded. If you're a blockhead, then nothing can penetrate you, just like if you were a bullhead. And you know that everything is all baloney. Everything is all baloney. Bail. But it's all baloney, right? Everything is baloney. Everything what we've been taught is baloney. Learn how to detect baloney and save a life that might be your own. We have belief. Bell. We also have be-lie in that. But Bell is in that because belief, if you believe in certain things, then belief is antithetical to knowledge. If you believe something, then you do not have true knowledge of it. You do not have gnosis of it. So those are two diametrically opposed constructs of the mind. Knowledge and belief. So Bell, and you got your head firmly placed up your rear end is where it's at, because you're bullheaded. We have lightning bolts, and trust me, we need to have lightning bolts. We need to energize our sacred masculine in the proper way. We need to be energetic in this way. We need to have boldness and the balls to say no to the
Excuse me.
corruption that's taking place. I mean, look at this grandmother or this old lady sitting in front of these immoral trash who are, coming in to violently take down innocent people. And trust me, she has more balls and boldness than most men that I have ever met, ever in my entire life. We need to turn the light bulb on. We need to turn the light in ourselves on. We need to be that light, that beacon of hope for the world. We need to be the light workers. We have the Bill of Rights. And even though I am not someone who thinks that we need to have redundant authoritarian pieces of paper for our rights, because once you understand what a right actually is, it's very simple, and to write it down, it becomes very repetitive and unnecessary. But we still don't want to lose any way of preserving our rights. And we have the Liberty Bell, a symbol of freedom. And look, it's cracked. I find that very symbolic that it's cracked, because our freedom is cracked. We need to be like bulldozers with the truth. We need to be unmovable bulldozers. And if it comes down to it, which I do not advocate for at this point, but if it does come down to it, you better be ready to use ballistics and bullets to get the job done. And you better be ready to use them to defend yourself and your family when it comes to it.
Yes.
But at this point right now, I am not in support of taking that stance yet, because I don't think that we failed yet at raising consciousness. I think we still have a chance at actually bringing this species out of this dark pit of satanic belief. I don't care if you agree with me or not on that statement. We have to strengthen our ability to stand against what's going on. We have to strengthen our mind and bring balance to the heart and the brain, and balance to the two hemispheres, and the sacred masculine energy and sacred feminine energy of ourselves. We need to say no to all the lies. So we need to get away from all the bullshit. No more bullshit. And we need to hit the bull's eye. We need to hit the bull's eye of truth and morality and the manifestation of freedom by ending slavery. We need to be the light in this world. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. That's all we have time for today, folks. One thing I would like to say is make sure to do your due diligence in the astrotheology. You will not be disappointed by studying this science. I hope you found clarity and value in all the information we have been sharing here at the CubbyWhole. Please make sure to go to thecubbyhole.com for news and future updates. Also, there is another platform that you can find us on. This is called the One Great Work Network, and the website is theonegreatworknetwork.com. This is something that many great light workers have been working towards for a long time to bring to the people, where you're going to find 24 hours a day live streaming of the ancient knowledge and things like natural law. There is amazing content up there. I highly recommend that everybody go to that site immediately and check out all the great teachers on there, and just start listening to the live 24/7 feed, or start going through the content creators and checking out their work. So as always, our website is thecubbyhole.com. That's CubbyWhole.com. And for now, we have one show coming out each week at 12 p.m. Pacific time. Stay tuned for more and keep transcending dogma.
amazing episode. Trying to take care of these super mutants.
That it?
They're gonna have
Is
to
it
pry
over?
this checkpoint from my cold, dead hands.
Excuse me.
Nothing's getting by me, sir.
Awesome. Took care of the super mutants. Ooh, what's that? Yes, that was amazing. I loved that episode. I can't wait. I want to look back and reflect on this episode. That's one that I would say to watch multiple times. I mean, there's so much with everything about the bull, and I got into that with the allegory of Titan Quest video that I did. I would like to do more Titan Quest, but I need to fix my PS4, unfortunately, before I can do more video games. I'd like to do some different video games like Tony Hawk or Tony Hawk Pro Skater HD or Jetpack Joyride. I could even grind some Injustice. Who knows? Let me know if you guys want to see some different video games or if you like Fallout. Put it in the comments below. Let me know. Put some W in your cup. Use code BeagleEyeVision at w.gg. Get some clean, sugar-free energy game fuel. I love W. I can't wait to get some more. Gonna just grinding in real life too. I gotta go to work here soon. I gotta start getting ready, eat some food. Thank you if you made it this far. Stay tuned and stay golden.